Hi gang, Rob here. It's the evening of 5 December 2017. Coming to you with a steel review, I guess. Sort of a knife review, but more of a steel review. I'm just sort of a testing source for my buddy Lon Humphrey from Area 51, Ohio. And I love it. I just love it when Lon sends me a text and says, "You got a package coming." Because it usually means, well, it always means he sent me a knife to beat the living snot out of and give him some feedback. And I love that from a maker. He doesn't really care if I critique the ergonomics to the minute detail or look at his grinds with a coordinate measuring machine and check for symmetry. He wants to know, does this blade that he hand forged, heat treated, and ground perform to his standards? And his standards are pretty doggone high. So the knife we've got tonight is a Muley in curly koa handle material, and this is rather interesting, isn't it? The steel is 52-100. Yeah, here's the knife, by the way. Now, this is rather a test mule of a Muley, so this isn't the most stunningly beautiful piece of curly koa I've seen come from Lon, but this is kind of a new material for him too. Early in 2017, he started stabilizing his own hardwoods, and he has a beautiful pile of this curly koa on hand. And you can really see, even in this piece that's not the best one I've ever seen, how that sort of tiger grain changes in the light. Just beautiful stuff. Now the Muley is an old pattern for Lon, and I really sort of see this knife as a small camp knife or sort of a heavy duty game processing knife. Rather thick, I think a little more than 3/16 in spine thickness. Saber ground and not super thin behind the edge. After testing, I sharpened this at 18 degrees per side with a little 21 degree micro bevel, and you can see my bevel is pretty broad. This is a knife that you can stab in between joints and snap tendons and cartilage, and just a heavy duty hunting knife or small camp knife, I think, and nicely made. You got your typical Lon Humphrey brute de forge characteristics. The rough forged surface on the flats, the brightly polished spine and belly of the handle, and then that integral forged guard, which makes it just amazing in the saber grip. Pretty little knife. So this 52-100 thing, that's a big deal, and when I'm gonna roll in the testing footage that I did on this knife, and I actually intended to do the video portion of the testing outdoors, but it got really windy here over the weekend. So you're going to see the testing that I did inside, just because it made better video. So we're going to roll that in now, and then when that's over, we'll sort of come back and give some final thoughts. So right now, here is the testing footage. You might want to put your earplugs in. Okay guys, tonight we're testing the new Muley from Lon Humphrey Knives. Not so much a test of the pattern, more a test of the new steel. This is the first run of production customs that Lon has run in 52-100 steel, and Those of you who are familiar with Lon's work know that he has worked traditionally in 1095 for his hand-forged knives. But last spring when I was there to visit him, he was sort of at the tail end of his 1095 processing. He's, over the last couple of years, had experienced some pretty grievous problems with the 1095. Inconsistent in composition, lots of inclusions, voids in the steel, stuff that just wouldn't heat treat right. So he started looking for a new steel, and 5200 is what he settled on. Over the intervening months, as he has started to prototype this steel, the forging process, the heat treating process, and grinding process, we've had some conversations about it, and specifically aspects of the heat treat that were affecting parts of his grinding process. And he shared with me some information about how it was going during post heat treat grind, and we talked a little bit about heat treat recipe over the months and trying to perfect that. Of course, I can't share the details of that with you because if I did, I would probably disappear, and Lon would neither be able to confirm nor deny his role in my departure from this world. So we're not going to do that. But we think that this is a pretty fine run of steel, and we're going to test it tonight. This particular Muley, Lon sent me, and he has really worked on his sharpening. This is the factory edge, or the maker's edge by Lon, and it's not the sharpest knife I've ever had, but I believe it will cut phone book paper. So that's the baseline we're going to start from. And what I've done is I've prepared sort of a three-part test for this steel, and we're going to cut some cardboard first, just for abrasive edge retention testing, and then we're going to cut up some quadrupled jute twine. That should give us an indication of edge retention in fibrous material, and then we're going to beat this knife through a chunk of pretty dry spruce. So that's where we're starting. First, we're gonna, I don't know how many cuts we're gonna get through, maybe 30 or 40 in some corrugated cardboard generously supplied by the United States Postal Service for free. No promotional consideration. So let's start cutting that stuff up, and we'll just get through the cardboard and then recheck the edge. You got to stay on the cutting edge, Rob. Okay. Short knife. Pretty wedgy for cardboard work, but we're not really trying to measure its cardboard cutting efficiency. We're just trying to eat up the edge if we can. You guys counting? Okay. Okay. I don't know, did you guys count? I didn't count, but here's what stayed on the bench. So we're going to clean this mess up, and then, you know, I'm going to leave the camera rolling just in case anybody wonders. Give the knife a quick strap on the shirt sleeve, just to clean off any residue. And back to the paper. Might be a couple snags in there. Yeah, a couple bumpy spots I feel on my fingernail, but this is a wedgie knife, still cutting phone book paper, so that's pretty good. Okay, onto the twine. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Whoops. Here we go. You know, I should have got some bigger rope. Trying to use more than one spot on the blade. Okay, there's that. And a little pant leg strap. What do you guys think? Think it'll still cut paper? It's not liking it. Let's start with a fresh piece. Yeah, it's getting a little draggy. Getting a little draggy. Let's see. Don't really feel any edge damage. Just probably a little bit blunt, just from running into the cutting board. But no more significant edge chipping than I had really before. Okay, now I'll do a little carving. The Muley handle, definitely not a bushcraft handle, but you get the idea. Well, I did this wrong-handed, didn't I? Should have had the camera on my right. So here's my baton. And here's my piece of wood. Here's the idea. The idea is I'm just going to beat this. I'm going to beat this knife through this piece of wood, straight through, perpendicular. My Bluetooth speaker didn't like that. See if we get any edge damage when we're done. Maybe one more. Is this abuse, you think, guys? Okay. Somebody gets to clean the shop tonight. And let's see what we got. Wow. Pretty impressive. Definitely got a snag, but it's sure trying to cut. Not bad. Yeah, let's see, what do I feel? And sorry, it's going to be hard to prove this to the camera, but definitely some blunting right through the area where I was beating through the through that stick. But I don't know if you can see this. Here's a little piece of that jute twine. I'm going to push cut through it on the cutting board right where I was doing all that work. It's not a paper cutter still, but still sharp enough to snap off that jute twine cleanly through every fiber. So pretty good, I'm thinking. Now let's see, what if we check the tip. No damage. Not a roll, not a burr. Alright. I think what we're going to do now is put a real edge on it. What do you think, guys? We'll put us a real edge on it and then come back at the tabletop, have a little discussion. Alright, well, you know, in sort of typical Lon Humphrey knives fashion, the Muley in 52-100 tested well. You know, they almost always do, whether it's 1095, 3V, or now 52-100. Lon gets the most out of a steel, no doubt about that. I was actually texting back and forth with Lon after I completed the testing, and I was kind of shocked. You know, he asked me how it did, and I said, well, it was very wear resistant. No chipping or rolling in the cut tests, and then in the toughness testing, it was quite good. Now the surprising thing to me was how easily it sharpened up. And you guys know 52100, a ball bearing steel, capable of taking a very fine edge and a very good polish. I was just surprised, given the performance that I saw, how quickly and easily it sharpened back up. It's a really cool steel. If you ever, if you look on the internet at microstructure photo micrographs of different steels, and you look at 52100, it's very interesting stuff. There's this beautiful, very tight-knit lattice of martensite, and then within that netting of little high-carbon needles are these beautiful, tiny little spherical carbides just suspended in that network of martensite. So it just has great support for very small carbides. And everything about it is hard, but it just seems like that combination of that needle-like martensite with tightly packed, evenly dispersed small carbides just gives you a best of all worlds situation. Now 52100 is not going to be very corrosion resistant. It's going to be a lot like 1095 with a little chrome and vanadium in it. This is not oiled. It's just sort of been hanging out here for a couple weeks. No hint of rust, but I have a very temperate, rather dry environment here, so wouldn't expect it to rust. Let's see what kind of an edge it took. And mind you, quite wedgy geometry. So it's not like a silent slicer through the phone book paper, but out a blade. It does okay. Slices cleanly, makes S-curves, push cuts phone book paper, and with very little work. So I think, Lon, if you're watching, this was a really, really good move. I got super consistent performance through the entire length of the cutting edge, and I tried to use it all in my testing. Very impact resistant, and if you're seeing none of the consistency issues you were getting with 1095, good move to 52100. So you guys who are going to be buying Lon Humphrey knives in the late fall of 2017 or shortly thereafter, you're buying 52100, and this first run of Muleys I think has been in stores for a little bit, and then Lon's got a model called the Bridger in production now that should be hitting before Christmas, I think. A little larger knife with a handle more similar to the Gunfighter Bowie, I guess. By the way, it does come with a sheath, and I got to say something negative, don't I? I'm not in love with this sheath. I would have been real happy with just a normal pouch style sheath. I suppose I could cut this off, but it's got this flap that fits very tightly into that loop. I mean, very tightly. I guess it protects the handle a little bit. That's a lot more effort than I want to go through. I probably have another sheath I could use. So I'm not in love with that thing, but I am in love with the knife, and I'm really in love with the steel. So guess what, Lon Humphrey knives collectors? You get to start all over in a new steel, and a better steel than 1095. Thought you guys would like to see that. That's all for this one, my friends. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember, the Word and my 52100 Muley are sharp.